Welcome to SchezzWho, Hampton Roads' staple for politics. Now, this is a growing channel. A month ago, it was 40 subscribers deep. Today, it's 57. This video wants likes and comments, so go ahead and do that. This channel wants subscribers, so go ahead and do that. While I'm at it, I want to give praise to my beautiful wife, Andrea Dixon. Love her and her amazingness, and I appreciated that she created this channel with which I'm able to speak with you guys. Now, if you are hungry in nearby university shops in Virginia Beach across from Regent University or on Portsmouth Boulevard in Portsmouth, I want you to stop by Miss Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. Personally, I love her fried fish and her fixins to go along with that. So if you want to have great food while sitting down and listening to local politics, I would definitely suggest Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express, both out of Portsmouth and Virginia Beach. Can't forget Mr. Seiko Varner over Positive Vibes Incorporated, because he can help you do credit fixes. He can help you do tax resolutions. He can help you with private money lending and debt consolidation. So if you hit up Positive Vibes Financial and gmail.com or 757-932-0177, Mr. Seiko Varner and Positive Vibes will be able to help you out with all of that. So tonight, I'll bring on Jennifer Franklin. She was elected to Kempsville's district seat on Virginia Beach School Board in 2020, back when Virginia Beach had a hybrid at-large system. She earned over 100,000 votes as a Republican-backed candidate against Democrat-backed Dan Edwards. She's running for her second term, this time repping District 1 in a strictly district system. So welcome to SchezzWho, Miss Jennifer Franklin, board member.
Hello.
And how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Pretty well. I was just able to wrap up another camp over at Princess Anne Rec Center with the out of school time program in Parks and
I
Rec.
love that.
I was able to swim for multiple hours today. I feel I got my workout in. I was able to write up the questions for tonight's show. And I just feel pretty accomplished. So I'm doing good.
Well,
I'm glad
you
you're
sound
doing
like you
good.
had a great day.
Yeah, I was able to exercise and I thought about the cool stuff that matters locally. So it is a great day. And I'm glad you were able to have, or at least I think you have, a great day as well.
I did.
So I don't want to hide my biases. Of course, I will tell everyone I'm a progressive, Democrat-minded individual. So my questions are going to stem from that, but I don't want to be stuck up and abrasive. So I hope we both have fun. I ask what I hope to be important questions, and I won't interrupt or do anything like that. I'll ask it and you just take it away. So
Okay.
let us begin with the softball. Describe your Virginia Beach history and your government service history.
So I actually came to Virginia Beach in 1989 with the Navy. I was enlisted at the time, and I was here active duty, and I've been here since 1989 in various capacities. I actually did leave for a brief stint right after I exited active duty, but I realized very quickly that I really miss Virginia Beach and I love Virginia Beach. So I pretty much came back about 9 months later, joined the reserves here, and just have loved Virginia Beach, loved this area ever since. Raised 3 kids here, just absolutely love it here. So outside of that, I have done many things. I was a single parent for 8 years. And so I have done many jobs. I have a tax service. I have been a mortgage banker for 25 years. I had a small CPR company at one time. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. And then I, of course, also love Virginia Beach Public Schools and have actually served the Virginia Beach Public Schools for over 25 years as well. Just in, different capacities, PTSA. I ended up being a PTSA president. And then, of course, the last 3.5 years on the school board, which I was so honored to serve.
And I'm glad about that, because that leads me into my next question, which has been, what do you view your highlights so far on the Virginia Beach School Board?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, one of the big things that I would probably say that I'm most proud of is that when I was first campaigning for the school board, is right in the middle of the pandemic. There was a lot of stuff going on in terms of unsure about, in person versus, being virtual. And there was just a lot of divisiveness on the school board. Not to say that there's still not some divisiveness, but I have to say that I feel like during my tenure on the board, it has gotten a lot better. One of the things that the current chair, Kim Melnick, and I'm serving as vice chair right now, have worked really hard to do is to make sure that people are talking. When I first got on the board, we had two separate factions. People were not talking to each other. And so it was really important for me because I feel like the most important thing we can do when we're serving in public office is to serve our constituents well and to listen to everybody. And I felt like when people weren't talking to each other, then solutions weren't being had. And so it was really important for me to work through that. I know, Conrad, you have followed the school board very closely, and I hope that you think that I've tried to be very issue based and not partisan based. And I think that I can fairly say that I have listened to all constituents and made a decision based on all feedback and not just one side. It has not made me popular at times, and it's made me very popular at times. So but I really feel like I've done a good job, and I'm very proud of the fact that I have been very issue based and voted that way. One of the other things, if I can just expound a little bit, was we have Renaissance Academy very close to my district. And for me, when I came onto the board, there was a lot of chatter about Renaissance. Of course, we knew about Renaissance from discipline hearings. And I just really felt a special desire to be able to connect the pieces in terms of how do we create a future and a source of hope for these kids who so oftentimes really didn't have that didn't have the ability to dream. How about that? And so one of my big goals through taking them on field trips, and I've done this through my own money. I've taken kids on field trips. I've taken them to the ballet. I've taken them to Tides games, with chaperones. I really just want them to get a sense of something outside of their sphere. And so that has been a really special project for me. And then our biggest accomplishment through all of that is that I also wanted to build a bigger bridge between Renaissance and Green Run Collegiate. Green Run Collegiate is our charter school. And so it is literally a lottery system, which I love because there are some kids who don't have the support and foundation that they might need at home to build that kind of success framework. And so with GRC, it is an IB interbaccalaureate-based program. So it's rigorous, but they have the support systems around them because it is a charter school. They have a foundation that helps with paying for different field trips and different opportunities. And we had our first Renaissance graduate. So they came from Renaissance, got all E's the whole time they were at Renaissance, and now just graduated with honors with a full ride to Radford University. I say that is a success story. It still gives me chills when I talk about it. So those are some of the things that I really want to create real results, real solutions, and not get muddied down into the things that so often public policy, governance can get mired down in the weeds sometimes. But I really want to have those success stories that we can say, look at us in Virginia Beach and what we're doing.
I appreciate being able to look at something that grows in success. You get to see it in real time.
Yes.
And hopefully that would be a lesson to future people who want to be on the board or already members of the board that, hey, this is working here. Let's go ahead and apply it to all the rest of the schools, that we can maximize the amount of people who go to Radford or people who go to UVA or because I'm a ODU grad. So
that's my husband. I'm a Monarch. Yeah, I'm a Monarch fan, 100%.
We're about to have another great, I was about to say great football season. We didn't have a great football season last year.
Well,
but we'll get better at that.
Well, yeah, we can have a separate offline conversation about that. They probably developed too quickly.
Just want to throw out first comment of the night to Martha Thorell.
Oh, hey,
Good job,
Martha.
Jennifer.
How are you?
So I hope she's having a great night as well. I want to go into dive into the first question based on school board related issues.
Okay.
We have a 1.2 roughly billion dollar school budget. So right off the bat, is that too low? Is that too big? How should we focus our priorities from a $1.2 billion budget?
Well, so I know that a lot of people oftentimes hear that number. And quite frankly, when you first get on the school board, you're like, how do I wrap my arms around this huge budget? I mean, I'm in finance and, work with $1 million loans. And still, it seems like a big number. But can I just say that when we are going through the budget, we are, and people need to keep this in mind, one of the largest employers in Hampton Roads. Virginia Beach City Public Schools employs over 15,000 employees. We service over 64,000 students, 86 plus schools. So when you're trying to say, is this the right budget? I would say that we're using that money efficiently, wisely, and every single dime counts. And so is it the right number? Well, gosh, I can tell you that we could always, and I know that this is probably a very touchy subject for some, but we have capital improvement projects that we are still trying to figure out how we are going to fund. Within 7+ years, we are going to have our capital funds, completely exhausted. And what do we do then for maintenance? And what do we do then about renovating schools? And that whole thing. So what I can tell you is that it does sound like a large number, but we are a large organization. We're one of the biggest districts throughout Virginia. And, and we're doing amazing things in our division. And I have to say that I feel like we certainly could, like most organizations, could always use more money. We have unfunded mandates. I don't think people realize the amount of unfunded, we're talking millions of dollars of unfunded mandates that roll down from the state. And so that means that we are required to implement, but we don't have the backing to do that. Now, we are a larger division. It probably, for us, it's painful, but it's not quite as painful as maybe a small division. But I have to tell you that we still use every single dime, and we're looking at those numbers, I mean, quite frequently, quarterly. We have a budget update every single meeting with telling us how our revenue, looks for that, incoming period. So, it's a loaded question because I can tell you we could always use more money. We're always looking for other grants that might help to supplement some of the needs that we have. I was just in a special education meeting this morning, and we certainly need to prioritize that because it's a mandatory, it's mandated by the state and the federal government. So yes, do we have an opportunity to look at our expenditures all the time? For sure we do. But I can tell you that we could also always use additional funds for teacher retention and recruitment, for special education, unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on.
We'll admit to be prepared because some more of my questions might be more and more loaded because I want to get deeper and deeper into some important issues.
Sure.
For instance, I recently interviewed Matt Cummings, who is running for school board himself.
I watched that.
Watching that, you may have noticed that Councilman Chris Taylor, now a mayor candidate, asked a question during the show. And he is a liaison to school modernization.
Sure. Yep.
That's vision on school modernization. I have you now. What's your vision on school modernization?
Well, we have a list of schools. In fact, that is one of the topics that will be coming up for a vote very shortly. What do we do about the next school to be modernized? Of course, in case your viewers don't know this, our PPEA, our public-private a partnership that we were going to, we had a unsolicited bid from a contractor to be able to put into one bid 3 different schools. And because we were going to do it, kind of like it's you buy 3 for 1, right? So it was one of those situations. If we could take care of 3 schools at one time, then they would give us this consolidated bid. And that's just layman's terms so everybody can understand what was going on. But essentially that had to get approved. And so that unfortunately did not get approved. So now we're going back to our design bid build for the next school in line, which would be Princess Anne High School. However, we don't have the funds to be able to completely renovate Princess Anne High School. So now the discussion is coming down the line. Well, the next one would be Betty F. Williams. And so we're trying to decide, which will be part of the discussion tomorrow night at our school board meeting. We're going to get more information. We're going to talk more as a board, which project really needs to come next. So when it comes to school modernization, it is very important. We are going to have schools that are going to be over 100 years old at this current pipeline, and with a lack of funding, it really could be problematic. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we can talk to voters about this, because we obviously know that collecting monies for school buildings is going to be a tough discussion. We're hoping that the state gets on board. They are talking at the state level about what to do, about assisting districts with school modernization. And then we have to also talk about the fact that we're not just talking about modernization, we're talking about just general maintenance. One of the things that has happened with our I don't want to say decreased, but our very tight budget right now is, for an example, we had to change our landscaping timeframe. So now we've gone from around 7 to 10 days to more like 10 to 14 days or more. So if you go to some of the schools, you might see that perhaps it looks like the grass really needs to be cut now. But unfortunately, we might have to wait a few more days just because we've had to make some of those tough decisions to ensure that we have got the money just for general maintenance, air conditioning, roofs. These, I would tell you, Conrad, like these discussions are just much more complex than you might think, because it seems like you can just say, well, just, wave a wand and just make it happen and, do this. And unfortunately, like every budget, I know that I'm feeling it in my household. Maybe other households are feeling it as well. Every single dime, every dollar, you're like, okay, what do I do with this right now? Because gas is expensive, food is expensive. And so budgets are tight, and it's no different for the school board.
Good points. Good points.
Yeah.
And I will admit, I'm also a member of the community action team, the 757 Battle Cats. And that
Nice.
group is very important about school as much as it is city council. And there are a couple of topics that they focus on wanting to fix. For instance, the school to prison pipeline and improving educational equity and rebounding off of COVID to fix the educational gap. So on those 3 topics, can you touch on how you might want to fix those things?
Yeah. Well, let me just say, I'm going to just do a call to action, because, when I grew up in a very small town and we had about 10,000, I heard Matt Cummings said he only had 4,000. So that's a small town. I agree. But, I also come from a small rural town in Pennsylvania. I was adopted into a Mennonite family. And so I have to tell you that, the town that I grew up in, we were a community. We really, if I walked down the street and I was misbehaving, my next door neighbor was going to my parents' house and, telling them, hey, Jennifer needs to clean her act up, blah, 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 and I really still think that we need the community to get behind our education and get behind kids and really work together. And one of the ways that you can do that is through volunteering to tutor. I was actually a tutor with the Life Enrichment Center. And so what they do is they help Title I schools. So because I'm in Kempsville, I went to College Park Elementary, and for almost the whole school year, we tutored these kids, because I heard Matt citing the statistic, and it's so true. If the kids are not reading at age appropriate levels by grade 3, there is a cell that is planned for them in the future. And that's so sad to think about. And if we can just go back to the example of my Renaissance to GRC student, I mean, she had no comprehension of her being able to even consider going to secondary higher education. I mean, there was just no thought in her head that she had the ability to do that. And she also could not figure out economically. She was being raised by a single mom. How that would ever happen, that was not even a thought. But you know what? Because we all worked together, because we had opportunities in our division, her future is bright. And you can absolutely see the difference in her face. When I actually did a podcast with her recently, and I'm telling you, she was beaming. She was beaming because she was so excited about her future. And that is what I'd love to see for every single kid in our school. When I was tutoring I had a little kindergarten child, and but they were tutoring up to first, second grade, third grade. And, these kids want to learn. They really do. They're so eager at that age. They're just absorbing. And if people would just show them attention, provide them the support, I think we can truly change these futures. So you want to talk about the prison to pipeline, or I'm sorry, what did you say? Yeah. So, when we're talking about that, I really feel like we can make changes. We don't have to accept that that's the reality. We can make changes if we're willing to give a little bit, whether it's time, money, resources, opportunities. I think that we can make serious changes, and I see it every day, and that's how I'm blessed, because I'm seeing these changes, these solutions happening in these lives, and it's just incredible.
Also, how much behind are we because of COVID, and how much could we rocket forward with more ideas about how to catch up students who fell into a COVID gap?
So I think that one thing that we are finally seeing is we're starting to see things level out a bit, right? We really had the post-pandemic learning gap that really has impacted our grades. In fact, this last year, our freshmen graduated, and they had talked about in their addresses as valedictorian, salutatorian, class president. They talked about how proud they were to have accomplished so much being post-pandemic. And so we have really done an amazing job. Luckily, kids are resilient. We have done an amazing job, though, of working very hard, in our system, in our division, to get kids back on track, back to a normal school environment. And I mean, if we had 2 hours, 3 hours, I could just go on and on about all the amazing things that are happening in our division. But, I think it's important to say that we have less virtual students. We have more people back in the classrooms. And that's definitely been a very big, proponent to getting us back on track. And so I think that we have some catching up to do, maybe a bit more, but I really do feel confident that we're going to get there. And this upcoming year, we have got sweeping, comprehensive changes that are coming down to literacy, mathematics, history. So, so I have to say that it's going to be an interesting year, because we have got a lot of changes that are trying to be implemented that would normally have been, put into effect gradually, but we really we are trying to play catch up a bit. So, I would say within 2 to 4 years, we're going to be right back on track.
Alrighty. Now, thank you again for watching the Matt Cummings interview I had, but you also might have watched when I interviewed Dr. Alvita Green, who's also running for school board in Virginia Beach, and she's curious about 3 topics. Metal detectors in schools, the role of school resource officers as you see it, and how students and parents can get better feedback to school leaders in regards to the inner climate of each student's school.
Okay, I'm sorry. So can you hit that first topic first? I'm
Yep,
sorry.
first one being metal detectors in school.
Metal detectors. So, we have Renaissance Academy that has metal detectors. I think that's appropriate because some of these kids and the infractions that they've had warrant us ensuring that in this environment where we now have kids that might have been fighting each other, put together in a learning environment, where that could be problematic. So I fully support having metal detectors. I know that it feels not wonderful when they walk through those doors, but they're there for a short period of time, hopefully. So at Renaissance, I do feel like that is an appropriate environment for metal detectors. I don't really want to see metal detectors in all schools. Um, it sets an atmosphere, and I hope that we don't have to get there. Obviously, safety, school safety is a huge topic of concern for a lot of parents. So I'm not going to ever say that we won't have to do that, but I would hope that we don't have to get there. I know that that's not a definitive answer, but I have to say that every single day is very different. Every single discipline hearing that we attend is very different. It might be very similar in terms of the infraction, but the kid is different. Every child is different. So, um, so I hope that we don't have to get there. That's my answer for now. If I have other information that warrants a future discussion about that, then we can take a look at that. But right now, I would say it's appropriate where we have it, and I hope that we don't have to have it in all the schools. So, yep. You still there, Conrad?
Yeah. How about school resource officers?
School resource officers. Well, I'm going to tell you, I personally love our school resource officers. In fact, I wish, in during the summertime, the police force typically has to draw down because they need them, for being at the ocean front and different other jobs that they have to do throughout the city. So we kind of streamline them down a little bit more when they're needed elsewhere. But here's the thing: school resource officers are not just there to promote discipline or to make sure that they're there in case that there is a fight or something like that. They are building relationships. In fact, when I was first talking about this on my first year on the board, we actually had a school resource officer that was beloved, and he retired from the school, and the school came in and just made a huge celebration about him and just talked about how much they were going to miss this particular school resource officer. And I have to tell you that it was really heartwarming to know that the kids don't see them necessarily as just the tough guy, the person that's going to enforce discipline. They're building relationships with these school resource officers. And for some families, some students that might never have a really positive experience with a police officer, I think it's a really great opportunity to build those relationships. Because, quite frankly, when it comes down to how do we change and impact lives, it's through personal relationships, it's through individual relationships, it's through trust building, it's doing all of that. And that's the only way that we're going to start changing the opinions of police officers, of getting of what they stand for, of who they are. And I think that is such an important opportunity that would be missed if we did not have them in our schools, because they are beloved. I would say that most of the time they're like high-fiving people, high-fiving the students in the hallways. It's not like they're there with their stick and, trying to, show their force or authority. They're there like high-fiving the kids and hanging out, just talking to the kids. So oftentimes they actually become a source of where the kids can talk to them about things. So I know that you can always look at the negative side of them, of anything, right? You can look at the negative side of anything, but quite frankly, what I see is great relationships being built. And so I am fully in support of the SROs and the job that they're doing, and the relationships that they're building. In fact, I would really love, we used to, one of my dear friends who has passed away, he was a police officer, but he actually did a blue line football with the Renaissance Academy at one point. And before he passed away, actually he passed away from COVID, but before he passed away, we were talking about bringing that back to Renaissance, because unfortunately they're not able to play sports at Renaissance. And so, it would be great to have an intramural kind of opportunity at Renaissance. And the police officers used to do that. I'd love to see them do it again.
And the last part for Ms. Green's, Dr. Green's question is about how students and parents can get better feedback from school leaders in regards to the inner climate of each person's schools. And basically, is there better transparency that could be had?
Well, sure. I would absolutely say that it would be a great idea for us to really figure out what is the best method of communication. When we get a parent complaint, the first thing we do is ask, did you reach out to the principal? Did you reach out to the teacher? What is the best way for you to communicate? And I think that part of the struggle is that everybody is busy. And we have families that some are working 2 to 4 jobs. And so it can be a struggle to figure out the best method of communication. So how do we work within the schools to do that better? It is through talking to the families and figuring out what is the best way to communicate with that particular family. And I think the schools that do it the best really have the best results in terms of participation, communication, less angst, possibly, in the schools, in terms of trying to make sure that all families are aware of things. And by the way, I do want to let you know that our back to school care fair is this Saturday at the Virginia Beach Convention Center. I want to make sure everybody is aware of that, because we do immunizations, free backpacks, all kinds of different things. So please go in case you haven't gotten the word.
Get the times.
You know what? I'm going to check on that. I'm going to do that really quickly. And it is on.
Just for people, I believe, at the convention center, which is on 19th Street.
I believe it's from 9 to 1, but I'm going to check on that. Yes, hold on. Cool. But keep asking, and I'll make sure I.
All right. So as you do that, and as I was brainstorming my questions for today, I reached out to a friend of mine in Virginia Beach who is a librarian. And she was concerned about the book policy vote and the unintended consequences therein, because Virginia Beach Public Libraries now are having trouble providing books for student outreach. So I wanted to know if you could speak to those votes and to the relationship with schools and libraries.
So, yes, I'm going to tell you that I am not a proponent of the first time it came around about the ban. It was basically a vote to ban controversial books. And if you watched that particular meeting, I was not in favor of that. I did not vote for that because I felt like that was a slippery slope. And I said that. The Bible could be considered a controversial book. There are many books. We had the Jewish community that had reached out to us with concerns. And there were a couple of factors that I did not feel comfortable with that particular vote, the way it was presented. One, it said it did not include the input from our library media specialists. That was a big one for me. I felt like if it's going to impact them, we should absolutely get their feedback on that. The second part was that it had to be done with a particular time frame. It originally, what the time frame was September, and then it was pushed back to January. I didn't like either one of those time frames because, they're off during the summer. When are they supposed to read through all of these books? Then when they come back to school, they're doing their job. They're not able to read through, thousands of books. Let's just say hundreds of books, if it would only been hundreds, but they still had a job to do. And there was no compensation piece in there for them to complete that outside of school time, which is what that would have had to have accomplished. So I actually did not vote for the first one. Now, the second one that came around, the second vote on the books was to build a committee. And this committee was built with the library media specialists included. And that was a big piece for me. I only wanted to have something move in that direction if it included the input of the library media specialists. They're an important piece of that whole conversation. It has no timeline. So there was no commitment to, we have to accomplish it within this amount of time. And it basically allowed us to just put together a committee that could talk about what do we want to do? How does this look for the future? And based on that input from the committee, they did have, the a book opportunity a book list, so that you can see if you're a family who felt like they're just not interested in in one particular book, that they can decide as a family, because most families, I hope, realize that you have complete control over what books are checked out from your student from the library. You can absolutely put that on their record and say, hey, they are not allowed to check this book out. And so it would be a conversation. Alvita, so if the vote came up again, knowing that marginalized groups are being impacted and information censored, how would you vote? Again, it would depend on how the vote was, or how the it was structured, how that came to us, because there are important pieces. I will not vote for anything that puts LMSs in a non-winnable situation. So again, when they had to read all these books, I'm not going to do that. I never feel like it's a good idea to set your employees up for failure. So I'm not going to vote that. So it just depends how it would be presented to the board, because in that particular situation, there was no timeline. It included the LMSs. I felt like it was important to have that conversation. And so I did vote for that conversation to be had, because quite frankly, I feel like it's important to be talking and having conversations. And so now I think that Dr. Green is probably alluding to the fact that it impacted our library books, right? Because we actually have a collection of books that are donated every year. And I can't remember what it's particularly called. If Dr. Green, if you're still on, and you can remind me what that's called again, but there's an opportunity for people to donate, and they can be dropped off at the schools. And the committee did feel like that was going to be a difficult situation, knowing that we could not have control over what books were being donated. And, because there has been such a discussion about the library books, it just didn't provide an opportunity for us at this time, with us just going into, keep that up, please. I want to just finish my thought. But with us not having the opportunity, because unfortunately that committee kind of got back to us a little bit late. So yeah, there's always going to be unintended consequences. Hopefully we can take a look at that in the future and be able to formulate a plan where we can still have donated books. Protocols were in place similar to the ones in place for parents opting out of school counseling services. Is that a comment or a question? I'm sorry.
Well, it reads like a comment. I don't know which she might have been responding to of your comments, but again, she's watching, so I'm glad she's watching. And
yes, hey, Dr. Green, thanks for watching.
You had mentioned library media specialist a couple times, and I wanted to know librarian, library media specialist, this terminology. Do you want a librarian or specialist in every school from elementary all the way up to high?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. They are an integral part of our staff. And again, we talked about the SROs. They're not just, I think that the misconception in the community, we think of the librarian, they hand out books, they check out books, they do that kind of stuff. And they do so much more. these library media specialists, and I'm sorry, Conrad, I just realized how dark this is. The sun is going down, but you had said not to let it glare, so I didn't turn on my light. So I apologize for
I
it's
have
going to get dark.
3 lights strategically placed all around me to get the right type of glow. So it's
So
a work in progress every time.
I know, but so no, these library media specialists are training. They're training teachers. They're actually doing a lot. So when we let's not just diminish their role as a librarian who hands out books. They're doing so much more than just handing out books. They're, working with the kids. They're working with teachers. They're putting together plans to, help teachers with certain curriculum, and they're just doing so much. So 100%, I absolutely feel like we've got to have at least one in every single school. Yes.
All right. Now, I am a fervent supporter of, and I make it clear that I want city employees to have collective bargaining rights. And I know that EEA does too. So they're going to be very prescient on pressing that on people who are running in this cycle, such as yourself. So you represent the board. Thusly, you represent a lot of city employees who are in the educational field.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts?
So that is a very complex question. And it's not as easy as a yes or no. Are you for or are you against? I think that is a very short-sighted answer if anybody gives just a yes or no. We had looked at this as a board as soon as it was available in Virginia. And, obviously we were having discussions about that right from the go, because we knew that was going to be a conversation that was coming down the pike. And so we had talked about it, and I can tell you, as a almost unanimous vote, if I remember that vote, it was almost unanimous that we decided at right now, this time, Virginia Beach Public Schools is not going to go down that route. And here's why. Because, again, we talked about unfunded mandates. We talked about the fact that we have so many costs, expenses, things that we have really got to focus on. Teacher retention and recruitment is a big concern. In fact, to me, quite frankly, that is one of our top concerns in our district right now. And so we estimated that it was going to be about $1 million to just have the conversation started. So for us to hire a collective bargaining attorney, someone who was well-versed in collective bargaining, when we were talking about that, we felt like it was not the best time for us to be looking at going down that road, because we wanted other people to vet that. We wanted other districts, other divisions to try that course first. And we can build from that experience. Like we're also talking about the recovery school. There was just a article in the Virginia Pilot about that, and how it seemed like there was a lot of support. And I do hear a lot of support from teachers and students about the recovery school. That is a cost. We started off with the budget, and I think it's a great place to start, because as much as we want to have everything, we have wants, we have needs, and what is required. Special education is required. There are certain things that are required from us as a division. And so we have to focus on what's required, and then we have to focus on our needs, and then we focus on our wants. Right now, and again, we almost had a fully unanimous vote on this board. It is not the right time for us to go down that, because quite frankly, I'd rather spend the money on helping teachers get bonuses, or helping teachers, find ways to build recruitment, build retention. I'd rather spend the money where we have the people in place right now. And so I don't think it's as easy as a yes or no answer. And quite frankly, it's somewhat telling that even the city of Norfolk said, we're not ready to do this right now. There is a lot of conversation that I believe needs to be had. It's not for anybody that is in public office to say it's a yes, no answer. I think that is very short-sighted, because there is so much that has to go into even building this within any platform. And quite frankly, it's not like you can just say, oh, hey, let's try it and see what happens. that would be completely hard to reverse. So I would say that right now it is not the right time for. Now I'm not running for city council, so I'm just going to speak. And I know that Ryan's not for collective bargaining, but I'm just going to speak for
Ryan is running for city council, though. But.
Yes, he is. He's running for city council, so I'm sure that he's going to weigh in on that side. But I can tell you, as a school division, I think our focus with the current dollars that we have got to be on doing the things that we need to do that are required and needed right now. And like I said, we've got a lot coming down. When it comes to this is one of the things that, and I'm going to talk to Ryan specifically about this, is because he's running for city council. You know, we have got a situation where we have got to, right out of the gate, every time we are in budget season, because of the time frame that city council wants to put their budget together, we are always the first district to put out our budget. And then what happens? What happens? Conrad, we have Chesapeake, we have Norfolk, Portsmouth, Newport News that come up behind us and say, okay, well, you guys did a 3% raise. We're going to do a 4% raise, or we're going to do this. We're going to make sure that our benefits are better. We're going to, you know, it is a game that is very difficult. Is it fair? Of course it's fair, but it's unfortunate because we are always in a position, because we are out the gate first. And we, a lot of times, quite frankly, they're building their budgets based on us. I mean, it's a fact. So I feel like this is kind of a big answer, but I feel like we have to focus on our employees right now. And quite frankly, I think that if you feel like we have got to have collective bargaining, then we have to be doing a better job of ensuring that we're listening to our employees, that our managers are doing what they need to do to, listen, hear, understand, talk, do the things that we need to do, because quite frankly, we're seeing it and we know what's going to happen. I quite frankly, I feel like we as a board, more than anyone, understand how important it is to retain our teachers. We spend so much time educating and providing them training and doing all the things that we need to do as a division. Of course, we want to keep our teachers. So I think that it's part of a larger conversation. But right now, I feel like it is a situation where we need to focus our dollars where we're going to create impact, retain teachers, and do what we have to do as a division.
Well, right off the bat, I'm going to appreciate that you gave your answer the way you did. I will still reiterate, my opinion is that I'm for it.
Sure.
Mr. Ryan is against it. So there are going to be a lot of people who are definite yeses and nos.
Sure.
I appreciate that you're at least going in between, because you want to listen to both before you futurely apply a vote towards it. While Norfolk voted against it, Portsmouth voted for it. Sure. I live in Portsmouth, so just floating that out there, they're just as much an example as Norfolk would be.
Well, but you know what? What I would say is that I look forward to seeing how Portsmouth does with that decision. I look forward to seeing the impact, pro or against, right? Mm-hmm. I look forward to seeing how that happens, because that is quite frankly what I feel like we need to do. We need to let others lead the charge on that and see what the impact is. And I think it's smart budgeting. It is smart future planning. I think all of that has to be taken into effect, because quite frankly, thank you, honey. My husband just turned on the mic. So, and there was light. But I really
changed to yes, and then I'm like, she saw the light. But no.
Exactly. But I do honestly feel like it's a big decision, a big discussion, and I want to be sure that we're doing the right thing, because again, I love Virginia Beach. I have lived in Virginia Beach since 1989, and I love it with a little gap. But outside of that, I love it. I love the division. I mean, I am fully vested in this division. I I have spent over 25 years, I'm the crazy PTA mom that was like, oh my God, I love putting these goodie bags together for the teachers and doing what I can. I mean, I love this division. I want to make sure we're doing the right thing for this division and for the city. So.
All right, now I'm going into a question that's both incredibly recent and incredibly important as a topic. It's also severe in so many fashions, but it's in Virginia Beach. So because of that, and it dealt with kids who are in our school system, it's important. Recently, there was news out of Kellam, the area.
Yes.
High school students were making racial slurs and or wearing blackface on social media. And I'm reminded of Kimsville High's baseball team.
Yes.
Suspended over a season for racially based abuse and hazing. And that was all in 2024. These students who would have been born in 2006 or later, this is behavior that we thought should have been eradicated by now.
Yeah, you would hope.
Exactly. The push to abandon curriculum that focused on equity and race consciousness was deep, both in Virginia Beach and then expanded up to Governor Glenn Youngkin. I believe, this is my soliloquy here, that we need to push hard on this issue, and it begins with educating our kids now. After all, Kimsville and Kellam, we see our kids are now facing problems amongst their peers. So you happen to be in power. You're on the board. How do we do this? Where is our leadership on the issue going forward?
Well, addressing these issues is an incredibly complex challenge, isn't it? There is only so much that we can do in our division, because so much of this culture stems outside of the walls of a school. And that, we can educate, we can create structures within our, the walls of our schools. But really what that has to do, I believe education is always vitally important in any situation. I came from a small town. And it was interesting leaving that town, especially going into the Navy, where you're meeting all kinds of people you might not have ever met. I was the only Asian in my district for the longest time until I was, well into secondary grades. And so, if you don't think that I don't understand the impact of racism, I have heard plenty of racial slurs. And so I know how that feels. I know how terrible it is. And I certainly don't want to see it happening in a division I love so much. So it is a really complex challenge. And the only thing I can say is that education is important. Creating opportunities to be with other cultures and other students and be able to implement friendships across different cultures, I think is so important, because I think that it's so easy to have tunnel vision. You live your life, you're doing your own thing, you have your family and their foundation and their traditions and all of that. And sometimes you can forget that, the global aspect of all of this, and that we are, especially in the United States of America, a huge melting pot. And I actually had served with someone who was Irish and from Boston. They're still fighting Italians in Boston. I mean, it's just crazy, how long some of these rivalries can hold. And I would often ask, I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, like, this is, back then it was the 90s, I'm like, this is the 90s. Why are you guys still fighting? And but that was part of their culture. And so, I have to tell you that it's just really interesting to me. And, having been adopted into a white family, I really have the blessed life of being able to see so many sides, which is why I never really just try to look at one side only, because I really feel like it's important to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand why they feel that way. And so, So sorry for the long answer, but it's a complex question. It's difficult to answer because there are so many different parties that have to be part of the solution. It can't just be the division. It can't just be one student. It has got to be us as a community. And that's, I think that's where it starts. We have to say as a community, this isn't okay. This is not okay in our community. And we are going to fight out against that. And so I really feel like doing as much as we can to one of the things I really love that they do in some of the schools is they might have an international food day because quite frankly, I think food binds people. It brings people together, right? And so, having an international food day, talking about different cultures, and just talking about, or even like North and South and, or different parts of the country. I think that we need to find ways to bring people together in a warm and safe and a setting that really is going to allow kids to understand and get to know each other on a very, on a level that they can start building that respect, because so much of this is just a lack of respect for the other person. So,
and I appreciate it. You're right. It is a very complex issue, but you also personally didn't want to not touch it. You did want to at least try and address it, and that is something I both respect and appreciate.
Well, I have lived it, and so it's I don't wear it on my sleeve. I've learned a lot from it. It's made me a tougher person. But I can tell you. In fact, I was just telling and sorry, I don't want to go into a whole bunch of stories, but I was just remembering that I had somebody that was bullying me in high school, and she just was relentless, just wouldn't let it go. And I walked into an advanced physics class. And I almost forgot this, but I dropped that class because I did not want to spend a whole semester with her. And so, people make decisions based on this kind of treatment. And I think it's important for us to recognize that. That was back in the 80s, but unfortunately, we still see it happening today. And so, we hear kids will be kids, but, I think that we have to, as a community, say we're better than that. And we need to find ways to show that we're not going to accept that kind of behavior.
Yeah, and I think it is something that could begin pretty low in terms of grade levels, because I work with OST. So that means I'm dealing with kids as young as kindergarten, and they get as high as fifth grade before they're out and they're in middle school and they're not in OST anymore in Virginia Beach Parks and Rec. And we have very strict policies regarding bullying. And this is the type of thing that could then, if that same sentiment was into the schools just as stridently every year, one would like to think that this is stuff that fades away as opposed to remain strong as we apparently still face it. So it's going to take a big community effort. Hence why it's important to have people who are at least willing to fight it on school board. So again, I appreciate that for you. And I want to put up Mr. Ryan's comment again, back on the previous question on collective bargaining and Norfolk being an example, just as Portsmouth is an example for me. And it's fine for them to keep up with the Joneses, but we need to meet and confer and not allow an intermediary to abrogate our responsibilities as elected officials. I understand your sentiment, though.
So what we have right now, what we decided on, in fact, I was actually a part of that committee. Beverly Anderson and I were on that committee together, and we have something very similar. We used to do meet and confer, and then that changed. But now we have an enhanced employee input process where we really proactively go out there and try to build a collective feedback from all of our employees. And I'm talking from our custodians, bus drivers, the whole gamut. We want to hear from everybody about, how are we doing as a division? And so, we are using right now enhanced employee input processes. We've gotten a lot of great feedback. We need our employees to absolutely, when they get the survey. And I know that surveys stink. Nobody wants to, take a survey at the end of a hard day, but it's really important to, again, if you want people to fight for your cause, for your rights, for your pay, for whatever that is, you've got to be part of the solution. And that means providing the feedback when asked. And so, it's hard to do that. And I think okay, thank you, Ryan. And I absolutely think that we have got to 100% get the feedback coming in, work together, collaborate. And again, this is why it was so important for me. If we're going to make a change to what we're doing in our libraries, we've got to bring in the library media specialists to talk about that. We can't make the decisions without them. They are the experts. That's what they do all day long. So I'm all about bringing in the people, having everybody communicate. Let's talk about the changes needed and get some solutions really built. And not that, and I like to say this so often, that when you have two sides, because I unfortunately, had a divorce in my life. And I have to say, when you have two sides that are battling the whole time, who gets caught up in the middle in a divorce situation?
Kids.
It's the kids, right? Because everybody goes to their sides. Nobody wants to communicate, collaborate. I met my husband, who was also unfortunately went through a divorce, but they did it so well. And I got to see firsthand. I would like to say that I did it well. I did not. And so, but I got to see firsthand how my husband, my current husband, collaborated with his ex-wife. It was beautiful. I mean, they were still a team, even though they weren't together. And so, I respect him so much because of the way that he has really shown me that you can work with other people. You might not like them. You might not agree with them. You might not want to live with them, but you can still work with other people for the greater good. And the greater good in that situation was their kids. The greater good in this situation is still the kids, but also our employees and the community, because quite frankly, I believe our division is a huge part of why Virginia Beach is such a great city. So
there's a great parallel between divorcing family members and kids and a school board. In the sense that the kids would be the ones who might be caught in a loop if it's too divisive.
Correct. And that and that has been a huge hope. And I think that we're making great progress there. And I know that you watch meetings. I hope that you feel like that too. We've gotten a lot of great feedback that our meetings are no longer must-watch TV. Okay. So I'm actually proud of that. I'm really proud of that because I feel like we're really getting back to the business of what we're there to do, and that is to make sure we have a great education system, that we're talking about these tough issues. We're talking about budgets. We're talking about the things that we need to talk about to make sure that this stays a great division. So.
Exactly. And I also want to give my appreciation to Mr. Ryan for making so many comments and just mention him.
Yes,
if he's
thank
still
you, Ryan.
watching that, can't wait to do a show with you, Mr. Ryan. Of course, I'm still waiting on Chief Hutch so I could get a form out for the district of District 1 for City Council.
I will be watching that because that's my district, so I'm going to watch it.
Of course. And make some comments and ask some questions. That'd be great.
Yes.
I also want to throw up on the screen here the link to your website, jenfranklin.com/issues. And the reason why I'm going to go to issues here is because I want to share the screen and give you a chance to talk about each one that's important to you, like class discipline and school safety. Lead off with that one.
So class discipline and school safety, it's, we have got to ensure, I think that one thing that would probably bring a whole community together is if we had an incident in the schools that was really problematic. We have got, I just can't say enough about our school resource officers, our team that is in, school safety. They're watching the schools. They're ensuring that we have that Raptor system that, forces you when you walk into the school to show your ID and doing all those things. So we are really on top of that. I would say that one of the things that we still have some room to grow, some opportunity to grow is the class discipline. And again, I think that comes from building relationships, partnerships with our families to really communicate how we can ensure that teachers are allowed to teach in the classrooms and to continue to reinforce the expectations of student behavior in classrooms. That does not mean that we can't be understanding if a kid is having a bad day, but obviously, if it's going to disrupt our ability to teach and learn, we have to do more there, right? And so I think that there is a lot of opportunity to grow in terms of how we can maintain a learning environment that is safe and ensures that we've got the proper discipline in place to allow all students to learn.
How about enabling the students to be competitive for higher education, such as curriculums, counselors, extracurricular skills test experiences? Touch more on that.
So I will just talking about the curriculum. So again, I could gush about our division and all the things that we do well. Our academies, we just had, I was the PTSA president of Kempsville High School. When I was at Kempsville, we were so concerned about our numbers going down because we were one of the schools without an academy. And I can tell you that with the Entrepreneurship Business Academy, we are doing amazing things. So enhancing curriculum. I'm proud to also say the Renaissance Academy is providing certificate courses. So these kids that are there, while they're there at Renaissance, they're getting opportunities to have certificates that they can leave with and actually go out into the workforce. So, and I know workforce and career ready is coming up. So if we're just focusing on the curriculum, just making sure that we're providing those opportunities. We're also letting families know about our, environmental studies program, about our career and technical opportunities, our internships, all of those different things. And the counselors, if I had a wish list, having the ability to hire more counselors would be on that wish list. I really feel like we would do amazing things. We're doing amazing things, but we could do even more amazing things if we had the ability to have more counselors in every school that would really be able to break down smaller groups that they can build relationships with. Because honestly, that was one of the things that my gal from Renaissance that went to GRC, that she really talked about so much, was the importance of her counselor, Monica, who encouraged her every single day, who when things got tough and she wanted to drop out of the program was like, girl, look how far you've gotten. Like you're a senior. Don't stop now. That encouragement. And, I would just say that so much of our staff are bogged down in the job. And as passionate as they are, sometimes they just don't have enough time to get granular with some of the students, right? Mm-hmm. And so that would definitely be on my wish list, is to have more, more opportunities to hire counselors, encourage the extracurriculars, having opportunities to really promote the clubs and sports. I know that the music and arts has been definitely a topic of concern. I play piano. I can tell you, I still bang it out on the piano when I'm stressed out, alleviate my stress through the piano. And so, I think, making sure that we have opportunities, and maybe it's through extracurriculars, because I definitely know how important music and arts programs are, and, to students and to how it's still, and I even said on the dais, I said, I can't tell you what is still on the periodic table, but I can still play piano. I said, that's how important music and arts were to me, so that I definitely
does make me a little curious about the alleged next year could have a shortage of music programs at Virginia Beach due to budgets. If you want to take a second to address that.
So we definitely have a situation. And again, we want to, we talk about all of this stuff that's available. You're seeing it on the screen right now that we're doing in the schools. I think that one of the unintended consequences of providing so many opportunities is that it does impact some of the music and arts programs, because I know when I was going through high school and junior high school, and I was just immersed in chorus and band, right? But I didn't have a million of other courses that, were possibilities, electives. We have so many electives now that are pulling away from that. So that is a big discussion that we need to have. I am a huge proponent of ensuring, and I think that we're going to protect that this year. Maybe not to the extent that I know that some parents would like to see, but we are going to protect those positions this year. And I think that we're going to put together some kind of plan, whether it's a 3-year plan, to ensure that we are able to identify the need and identify how we're going to protect music and arts in the future. So,
well, we are at about an hour and 9 minutes.
yes, sorry.
Go ahead and address workforce and career ready, perhaps reducing class size.
So, yeah, so I'm going to tell you, I am the perfect example of all three of these. After high school, I did go to college, but then I followed my then boyfriend into the Navy. And so I went into the military. So that was the enlist factor that we have in the enlist, enroll, and employ. So I was, in the military for 22 years. And then after 11 years, I didn't, have the opportunity, because I was a single mom at the time, to stay active. So I was a reservist, and I went out into the workforce and have had a great career with mortgage banking for the past 25 years. So I can tell you how passionate I am about all three of those paths, because it has impacted my life. Every single path has impacted my life, and I'm a better person for all three. And so I want to make sure, and we are working very, very diligently. Every single time I hear of a business, in fact, there's a new business that's going to be opening up on Lynn Haven Parkway, I automatically talk to them about, hey, what do you think about providing an internship to some of our students to get out there and have a workforce opportunity, so they can go straight from high school and have a career, have a path that they can go. So we want to make sure that we're really allowing that opening for the path for all three of those: enlist, enroll, and employ. Yep. Did it release you?
Sorry, I need to get back up here in order to do that. Mr. Ryan gave a very lengthy question here I'm about to throw up on the screen. He personally would like to ask, what are your thoughts on the responsibility of parents in disciplining their children appropriately before, during, and after they get into Virginia Beach City Public Schools, and how teachers more and more are having to thread the needle of educating the youth while providing a structure that not only ensures a solid learning environment without distraction, but also ensuring that these interruptions do not impact our educators' ability to achieve their core mission. So that's a deep one.
And it's a lot to answer. So I'm going to just say, as a big overall view of that, we are here to teach kids. Teachers need to be able to have the ability to teach, and kids have to have the ability to learn. We cannot parent for these kids. We can't parent for the parents. We're not there to parent the kids. We have to have the partnership of parents. I can't stress how important that is. We have to have the collaboration, teamwork, and partnership of parents to be able to make this happen. Because, again, I'm just going to go back to this one success story because it has kind of all the elements rolled it up into one. The guidance counselor, Monica, was having a really tough day with this particular student. And I have to tell you, the student calls the mom, says, I need you to pick me up from school. And the guidance counselor said, hey, are you talking to your mom? And she's like, yeah. And so the guidance counselor said, well, I want to talk to your mom. And so she gets on the phone with the mom and says, hey, mom, we're doing everything we can to give your child a future here, to give her opportunities. We need your support. How are you willing to work with us on this? And she said, put my daughter back on the phone. And she told her daughter, she's like, girl, don't you mess this up. She said, don't you mess this up. You have an opportunity. And look at her now. She's got this amazing future. Now, that is a perfect example of everybody working together for the best interest of that student. And it worked amazing. And it wasn't a perfect day every day, but we had enough good days that it got her to a with honors graduation and a full ride to Radford. And a future that she had never dreamed of. So when I talk about what we have to do, and to Ryan's point, We have got to work together with our families to collaborate to help ensure that we are giving the teachers the opportunity to teach and kids the opportunity to learn. We're going to provide them amazing resources and opportunities, but we all have to do our part, right? And, that includes our part in the community. If you're able to tutor. If you're able to provide time and resources as a PTSA person, do that. I am a huge proponent of PTSA. I can't tell you what an advantage that gave me when I was, a single mom in the school, just getting to know the teachers, getting to know who my daughter was spending, 6+ hours with. And so it's such an important piece for us to all understand our role in allowing this education to happen and these opportunities to expand. And we have great resources. We just have to make sure that we're using them well. So,
well, I appreciate not only that you've been on tonight and allowed us to have a good immersion into her being on school board and why to vote for her again, but let's close out with your last elevator pitch as to why to vote for Jen Franklin.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I have a million things that I still want to accomplish. I have, when you get on school board, you are immersed in the budget first thing. And you are in a learning process. My motto right now is listening, learning, and leading. And that is what I've done for the past 3.5 years. I listen, and there is nobody that's going to walk on this school board. I don't care how long you've been in this division. There is nobody that's going to walk on this board and know everything about what you have to do. You're always going to be in learning mode. And I feel like I think that it makes me a better person because I am constantly learning and I'm eager to learn every single day. But I'm also the only candidate in this particular district race that is going to ensure that they listen to everybody. I want to hear from the whole community. I don't care if you disagree with me 100% of the time. I'm willing to listen. And I think that is the biggest differentiation between me and the other candidates is I have got a track record now of listening to everybody. I want to listen, learn, and lead by example. I feel like I have done a pretty bang up job of being a good example of how you should act while sitting on that dais. I don't yell at people. I don't try to create divisiveness. I really want to just have everybody work together for the betterment of this division and the city and the students. Most of all, they're the winners in all of this. If we can all work together, build solutions and work, and just have great teamwork and collaboration. So that's my elevator pitch. I just want to help this division as much as I can because I love it.
And I want to thank you so much, not only for being able to serve, but coming on SchezzWho, which again is Hampton Road's staple for politics.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me
with us. I hope you have a great night tonight, and I'll
thank you.
Perhaps see you around the line for a forum we create specifically for this district.
Okay, sounds great. I'm ready.
You have a great night. And of course, thank you everyone for tuning in, asking questions, liking the show. That's the stuff I want here on SchezzWho. Like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and come back for the next episode. And we